Good morning, everybody. Welcome to the webinar. Today's topic is how to transfer your company from an outsourced recruiting model to direct sourcing. So my name is Peter Clare. I am the Vice President of Revenue Operations at Talemetry. I've worked with Talemetry for about 10 years, about 15 years total experience in the HR software market, going around North America and internationally, talking to customers about their recruiting challenges and talent acquisition. So very happy to be here today, and very happy to talk about a topic that is extremely important to all of our constituents out there that we speak to. So why does sourcing matter? So we think about how we got the topic for this webinar really is from you guys, from all the people that we go out and talk to. So we did a survey in 2012, and we asked people to rate what their biggest challenges are. And as you can see from an overwhelming perspective, that finding good candidates is the biggest challenge on a scale of 1 to 3. It was kind of a 2.5, compared to all of these other challenges that certainly exist but do not rate as high in the overall scheme of the world. So we think about then, if finding good candidates is the challenge, there's probably a bunch of different ways we can go and help companies find great talent. So it starts with looking at what are the primary strategies. So a lot of the times we can talk about a direct sourcing strategy, which is really what we're here to talk about today. There's other strategies like candidate attraction, candidate experience. But as we look at direct sourcing as the challenge, particularly for the folks of this webinar, and thinking about how you go and move to direct sourcing as a primary strategy, it's important to think about what are the external considerations, what are the things that happen outside of your organization that are critical to the process of direct sourcing effectively. I think those things are things like social, right? So what is going on in the social world? How do you engage candidates on social media? Mobile, how do you source candidates in a world where almost everybody that you're interested in has a smartphone? And then what are the global requirements for your particular organization around how you engage, and what are the cultural sensitivities around that? There's internal considerations that are part of moving to a direct sourcing strategy. Things like, is there dedicated sourcers, or is there a hybrid role of recruiting and sourcing? So there's an organization evolution that can be part of this. There is centralization versus decentralization, and we talk to companies that do both of those. What are the visibility requirements, and what are the technical requirements? So generally speaking, and we'll talk about this, ATSs aren't built to do sourcing, so how well do you have to tie in your supporting sourcing systems into your applicant tracking system, and then ultimately thinking through the impact from a business perspective of cost, speed, and the quality of the people that you're bringing in. So we're going to talk today about all of these different considerations and impacts and the components of them that are going to be important as you think about shifting your strategy from what we often hear our customers refer to as post and pray to a direct sourcing strategy, or from a marketing to a sourcing strategy. So we start off by kind of looking at a model where we have to really understand that in talent acquisition in general, there's really two important functions. There's an internally focused function, which is called applicant tracking. Very well-known world. There's some very large vendors out there that do a fantastic job of this. But then there's an externally focused function of engaging talent, which we call talent generation, which is really a completely different thing. It's not focused inwardly into the company, but rather focused out into the broader world. Certainly from a talent generation perspective, there is the aspect of internal mobility and doing talent generation from an internal perspective, but the lion's share of it generally is an outwardly focused external activity. So if we think about how that works from an overall applicant tracking system process, applicant tracking system is really designed to go through meeting compliance requirements, going through requisition approvals, interview scheduling, notes and feedback, getting through offer letters, offer approvals, etc. Nowhere in that applicant tracking system process does it have a component for really effectively going out and finding great people that are going to be a good fit for your organization overall. In fact, we've seen Gartner release a report that makes it really clear that all of the traditional applicant tracking vendors haven't met a strong demand for improved sourcing, searching, candidate relationship management, social, etc. User experience, and they're predicting that 70% of large organizations are going to have their recruitment marketing solutions separate from their applicant tracking systems by the end of next year. Not really all that different when you think about it than the way that we see the world work in, let's say, Salesforce.com and Eloqua or ExactTarget or Marketo that sit in front of the Salesforce automation system. So some parallels there, I think, that are important. So if we think about the sourcing side of the world, where does it sit to find, attract, and engage talent in the process? Well, it kind of sits in between when a job requisition comes out of that applicant tracking system, and it ends when you've got somebody that is now a part of applying for a job. Now, we look at how does that process work. Well, that works the same way whether we're talking about a strategic sourcing strategy where we're building up pools of talent and networks of talent, or if we're looking at more tactical sourcing where we're sourcing for an individual position or a role. So this model that we use to outline kind of our processes is kind of helpful in thinking through what is talent generation and specifically what is sourcing and candidate relationship management. So we've got this idea where the jobs come out of the ATS, as we saw, and our goal is to get applications into the ATS. So you go through a process of talent sourcing in CRM, which is all about searching and managing candidate relationships. There's job posting, which is advertising. Then there's career sites and candidate information capture, which are all about making sure that you get a great candidate experience through the process. And there's an interesting thing that happens when you really think this through is that, if you go from a talent sourcing and CRM perspective, it's something that can go very quickly. You're proactively searching, you find somebody, you reach out to them, and you get a response theoretically right away. In the case of job posting, it's more expensive to do those job postings, and it takes longer because if you put a posting up and it takes 25 days before the right person sees it, that's much slower and, as we know, more expensive. So in the sourcing world, there's a whole bunch of different things that are important that we're going to talk about, but the idea is it's the fastest way you can go and find talent. It's generally the cheapest way that you can do it. And you need to ensure that you have a system that allows you to reduce the amount of time that's spent waiting for candidates to apply, the time that's spent waiting for the time that's spent on actually posting those jobs out, et cetera, and rather using that time to engage talent, either the talent that is out there on job boards, social media, or the talent that's in your talent networks, in your past applicant pools from your ATS, and so on. So we're going to talk today about how we can help support that. So in order to do that, we're going to spend most of the time talking about our source and CRM tools and what the technical capabilities are to support an evolution of a team into more proactive sourcing, both, again, on a tactical basis, which is on a one-off job basis, or in terms of building up talent networks of on-demand talent so that the right people are ready at the time that you're ready for them. So in order to break this down, we really think about this in terms of there's two different components. There's the source component, which is about proactively ranking candidates across all of the different sources based on the requirements that you have for either current or future open positions. Thinking about those sources, there's a requirement today as the constituents that you have are segmented across multiple different online presences. There's going to be a requirement to be able to search job board candidate databases, to be able to search LinkedIn, to be able to make sure you're leveraging the applicants in your existing applicant tracking system, and then also going out and making sure that you're able to see the hundreds of millions of candidates that are literally just posting their resumes and their CVs on industry sites, on personal blogs, et cetera. And then the second component, though, is the CRM component, which is really about organizing these people effectively, managing your relationship with them, communicating in a way that is going to allow you to get them interested over time. So it's easy to find them now, right? It used to be hard to find people. Now their information is out and available. Now it's about how do you get their attention? and how do you get better than the competition at getting their attention and getting them to apply for a job in the long run. So we think about what are the key challenges that prevent companies from being really good at sourcing. It's hard. It's hard to find quality candidates, and it's hard to get them engaged in the process, and it can take some time, right? So you think about what are those factors. So there's multiple places where candidates live online now. It used to be easy to find candidates. You would put an ad in the newspaper, and nowadays there's hundreds of different sites where they might be. The applicant tracking systems have not done a great job of building in search tools that are sourcing-centric. There is, in a lot of cases, there's no centralized pool of outside applicants. So you've got the people that have been through an application process at some stage, but you don't have all of the people that never made it. I think there's no big data access to just large numbers of candidates to quickly flow through. You think about the technology capabilities today to be able to search hundreds of millions of candidates in seconds. That's something most companies don't have access to. Database subscriptions are expensive. They're difficult to use. It's difficult to understand if you're getting 100 downloads from Monster per week. Are they actually all being used? Are they being tied into the system, and are we starting from scratch every time? And then there's some process challenges around, there's a preconceived notion that the first thing that you do when you get a job is go post it out on the web. So there's a view to which the behavior is to go out to job advertising or go out to a recruiting agency in advance of even looking to see if you've got the candidates. And I think that everybody on the line has the experience of paying for a candidate from a recruiting firm, for example, only to find out that they already were in your applicant tracking system. And then I think there's a challenge around the metrics that people are using support the older methodologies. So a lot of the time the metrics are around how many people applied, the metrics are around how many people did the job board send over, and if that's what's being measured, then that's certainly going to be what the people focus on. So if those are the challenges, let's talk a little bit about what some of the solutions are. So in terms of the different databases available, it's critical that a solution has the ability to be able to search all of the available databases from one place, so that recruiters aren't having to go and log into 10 different online systems in order to look at candidates. It's inefficient on two levels. The first level is that you can't compare, let's say, the candidates in LinkedIn to the candidates on Monster effectively, and then obviously it's time consuming. So improving that recruiter efficiency, giving them more time to be able to actually talk to the candidates versus being search experts, is a critical component. The next component that I think is important is to make sure that you have effective ability to search the applicants that come from your ATS. I think leveraging those candidates that you have that were maybe silver medalists for jobs in the past is going to be a critical component to making sure that you're deploying a good sourcing strategy before you go spend money trying to find new ones. The next component is making sure that you're leveraging the millions of indexed web profiles that we have across the globe that will allow you to quickly filter down on any candidate that's available on the web. So we're constantly out pulling in, literally there's I think over 200 million candidates in the process that are available to search on and find and rank against all those other sources that you're paying for. I think intelligent search is a key component of this. So it used to be that you needed to be an expert in every single keyword and term to do a good Boolean search to find candidates. And the reality is that, a recruiter that's looking for a technical role, or a recruiter that's looking for a scientist, or a recruiter that's looking for an executive may not know all of the words or terms that are important to that role. Having a system that has built-in search and semantic capabilities to do conceptual searches is a critical component to making sure that a recruiter can quickly find the top applicants. So easily uncover those people without having to know every single word that might be related to what you're looking for. Building a centralized talent pool asset. So I think there's a lot of buzz around this. It's called different things in the world. So we hear people call this talent hives. We hear people call this talent networks. We hear people call this talent communities. We're calling it a talent pool here. But this is really about building up and segmenting out talent in advance of needing them. What's important about that is that once you have somebody into a category, then being able to proactively communicate with them on an ongoing basis about what is happening at your company allows them to go into more of a self-serve mode where they can really understand why they want to come and work for you. You can really promote your employment brand without having to spend money on advertising and work them through a process so that when you do need them, they're going to be available for you. Deep dynamic candidate profiles. This is a really important piece of the overall puzzle. So as you build up a pool of talent and as you build up a database of people that you can then leverage on an ongoing basis, it's really important to be able to find out what else is available about a candidate, what other information is there. So in today's world, candidates are putting information everywhere. They're putting information on a LinkedIn profile. They're putting information up on a personal blog. They might be putting a sales presentation that they've done onto SlideShare. Being able to easily go and find all of that career-related information and consolidate it into a profile means that you're going to be able to keep that pool of talent fresh on an ongoing basis, which is an important piece of the overall puzzle here as well. Managing the relationships, very straightforward, right? How do you make sure that you're communicating effectively with people using the right language, the right templates of information, tracking all of that usage so that you're engaging talent and not abusing talent, right? And working through that process is all about, you know, how do you effectively build that relationship and measure what works for you and what's required to go make sure that you're going to have the right talent at the right time. And then I think then the more tactical component is sourcing for open jobs and inviting them to apply. So being able to easily go and say, okay, these are the people that are in my talent pool. I now have the job. How do I easily go and grab the top 10 people and say, hey, we're ready for you to come and apply now. We've got a great position for you based on everything that we know about you and everything that you know about us. So those are really the key capabilities that are required to support a sourcing strategy. I think from a source and CRM product that we have, those are the key abilities that we can bring to your organization. But I think that it doesn't really stop there. It doesn't stop at what are just the direct sourcing activities. If you're moving your organization into a direct sourcing model, there's a couple of key components that are important to that as well. So one of those components is smart advertising. So it's still going to be important to post some jobs. It's going to be important to think about potentially posting some jobs that are more evergreen style so that you're building up your pools of talent through advertising so that if there is people that are looking, they're coming through in the process. But really, when you go to advertising, you know, as I've said here, it's called smart advertising. So this is about moving to centrally managing all of those job postings so that you can see which ones are working, which ones are actually delivering the right talent into the process and building up your pools of talent. So, you know, posting doesn't go away, but it has to get smarter, and it has to be smarter in terms of, you know, are we automatically posting out to all of the free boards, for example, and doing the things that don't cost any money and still help to build up your talent pool overall. So that's one component. The next component, I think, is really thinking about great candidate experiences. So as you move into more of a sourcing strategy and you start to try and build a relationship with these candidates, it's really critically important that when they interact with your employment brand online, that they're going to have a great experience doing so. So what does that mean? So that means a couple of different things. That means that you have to make sure that your Twitter feeds, if you have Twitter feeds, your Facebook pages, if you have Facebook pages, your LinkedIn presence, all have a consistent brand message so that no matter where a candidate goes, they're getting the information that you want them to see. I think that that information needs to be targeted based on the type of talent that you're hiring. So for example, if you are a large hospital, you know, if you're looking for IT talent, you don't necessarily want them to come to a site and learn what it's like to work there as a doctor. You want to be able to highlight to IT talent what they're going to get to work on from a project perspective, who they're going to get to work with, and so forth. So having that great candidate experience is important to allow them to do self-discovery or self-learning, self-service discovery through the process. But you also then want to make sure that you're not putting those people through a cumbersome applicant tracking system apply process if you want them to actually submit their information to you. So can you capture just first name, last name, email? right? So that you can communicate with them on an ongoing basis and learn more about them later. That candidate experience is a really critical component as we think about how do you go and engage talent when you don't have a specific job for them. So then, as we talked about here, from an application process, it's not just being able to take first name, last name, and email. It's also, can you just take their LinkedIn profile as their submission, right? Can you ask those basic marketing questions? Can you put them through an assessment in the downstream process once you learn more about them? So those are some of the things that are ancillary to the direct sourcing person's job, but are an important part of how do we go effectively run a sourcing strategy. So then at the end of the day, I think the really, really important thing is that all of this is more than technology, right? So change management is absolutely critical to the evolution of an organization away from a marketing or post and pray type of a methodology into direct sourcing. So it's critical, as we've seen working with global companies, that we need to go gain buy-in up front from the users for what the strategy shift means, how they can participate in it, building a team of ambassadors to work through the process of managing that change. I think the change management cannot be underscored enough here in terms of how important it is to go get that buy-in up front and build a team of ambassadors. And then there's an evolution that needs to happen of mapping objectives to and metrics to what the new objective is. So think about, we've got to look at what is the total number of candidates that are being communicated to from the ATS. We've got to look at things like what is our total reach, how many proactive communications are we doing, on what schedule, total talent pool size, right? The geographical makeup of the talent pool, and all of these types of metrics that we want to start building then have a bigger impact on business strategy. So once you have a pool of talent, you can understand, let's say if you're opening just think about a call center, for example. If you wanted to open a call center, having pools of talent segmented by geography would make it really a much easier decision to understand where could you staff up that call center more easily. So simple example, but it's things like that, and starting to think about what are those types of things that we want to map to from an objective perspective that I think have the biggest impact on making sure that your shift to direct sourcing is going to be an effective move for you. So I think if we summarize the business impact, there's a whole bunch of different things that we can talk about in terms of the quality of hire that comes from being able to search all of the sources and cast a wider net, but filter it down effectively. We can talk about the impact on the time to hire if you're finding the right talent rather than waiting for them to apply. We can talk about the cost from a recruiter efficiency perspective, right? So recruiters don't have to learn how to search in 25 different systems anymore, right? Recruiters are not going to have to evaluate hundreds of resumes one by one, right? They can go look at the top 10 in a matter of seconds. Think about the ability to reduce those vendor costs over time. So if you're sourcing out of your existing talent pool, you're not going to have to spend so much money on job boards, for example. And then, we talked a little bit about the improved brand experience, improved candidate experience. We talked about some of those visibility things that you can start to build up. And then there's also, we didn't really spend a lot of time talking about it, but there's also some built-in compliance components to this for our companies on the phone that are in the U.S. and working with government contracts around OFCCP compliance that's simplified using these types of systems. And then there's also the best practices that are built in to running an effective direct sourcing strategy. So I think that kind of takes me to what I really wanted to get through today. I think if we could open up the floor to questions, I'd be happy to answer any questions about our experiences in moving through this evolution with our client companies on going from a marketing to a direct sourcing based strategy. And I'll just give a second if anyone wants to put a question in the chat window. We'd be happy to answer that. Okay, so I've got a good question that has come through here around, it says, what is the right mix of marketing activities versus direct sourcing activities? That is a fantastic question, and it's one that's impossible to answer without asking a bunch of other questions about what the specific environment is. I think that from an overall perspective, it's really going to get into, what constituents are you looking for, how many of them, is this a volume hiring type of a problem that we're dealing with, or is this a targeted specific hiring that we're working on. Had another question that came in asking if we're going to send a copy of the presentation. Yeah, we absolutely will send a copy of the presentation to the people that attended today. So that's no problem at all. I think we've got just 2 minutes left here, so I think what I'll do is I just wanted to make sure that everybody had a chance to respond to our questions. So we're happy to get into more of a one-on-one situation to do a 1-hour free strategy session with somebody from our team. I actually attend a lot of those myself to be part of them and learn from our customers as well as share our experience. So if you would like to be contacted about a strategy session, by all means, click yes, please sign me up today, and somebody from our team will get in front of you. So happy to do that. I think we'll end it on that note. So you see our information here, so can be found at www.talemetry.com. You can find us on Twitter at Talemetry. You see our Facebook presence there. So I want to say thank you very much for your attention today. Enjoyed speaking with you. Have a great day.